Hi everyone, welcome back to the latest episode of the EFL Magazine Business Podcast. This is episode 3 of season 3 of the podcast. Today's guest is Leah Sparrow. Leah has been the owner of Leah Sparrow Digital Marketing since 2020. Her love for marketing began when she worked in a radio studio in Tennessee. After years of radio, she got into teaching and she completed her master's in curriculum and instruction. And so she went on to teach in private schools in her town. The discovery of online teaching was made around 2017, and she began teaching online with VIP Kid, Q Kids, and GoGo Kid. She then went out on her own, and she used the expertise from her years in sales and broadcasting to start Leah Sparrow Digital Marketing. Her digital course, the Online Teacher's Facebook Ads Blueprint, is helping online teachers take their business to the next level. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey everyone, buckle up for a new episode of the EFL Magazine Business Podcast, the one and only podcast made to help you launch your business or take your existing business to a level of success you could never have imagined. Whether you're a school owner, freelancer, publisher, or other entrepreneur, you're sure to pick up lots of actionable advice when you listen to the EFL Magazine Business Podcast. Remember to visit eflmagazine.com for great articles and features. Without further ado, here's your host, the founder of EFL Magazine, Philip Pound.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to the EFL Magazine Business Podcast. Today, I'm delighted to have Leah Sparrow from teacherleah, Leah.com. And Leah is going to teach us today all about building business content and Facebook ads. Is that right, Leah? Or what other
pretty much.
Do you have to your bow?
It's pretty much, running an online teaching business as an independent online teacher, using paid or organic marketing to grow your business.
Okay, great. And tell me where you are today, Leah.
I am in North Carolina.
Tell me about North Carolina.
North Carolina is down in the south. We've had an odd weather for this winter. We had the degrees up in the 70s. So we usually are starting to get cold and icy. We don't really experience a lot of snow, but most of it's icy. But North Carolina is it's a southern state that's right on the coast, the East Coast. It's just above Florida. And I mean, give or take a couple of states, and just below Virginia.
Is that on the Mason-Dixon line? Is that in North Carolina?
Yes, it is. We're talking about the South.
Because I can kind of pick that up from your voice. Is this a typical North Carolina voice?
Well, I'm not really sure. I was born in Florida. So then I moved to Tennessee and then over to North Carolina. So it could be a complete mixture of all that. Florida doesn't have an accent.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure about Florida because it's so mixed, isn't it? There's so many people.
There's a lot. It's very diverse, extremely diverse. Yeah.
My first experience of Florida was Scarface with Al Pacino in the early 80s. So,
that's not too far off.
So, or maybe that's what it's like, but I'm sure it's become gentrified over the years, like a lot of other places.
Maybe. It is. Okay. It's a playground.
So tell me a little bit, Lee, about your background. Were you originally a teacher and got into business, or how did you start?
Well, I kind of stumbled, tripped, and fell into it. Basically, where I started out in was English journalism, and I became the operations manager, which is the person who hires and fires everybody at this radio station. I was there when talk radio was coming to the top of the scene with Rush Limbaugh and all of them. So I programmed radio stations. I had to deal with the satellites. I had to deal with all the technology there. So then I became a production director, which is someone who handles the commercial material and the promotions. So I created content for the radio station in order to basically gain more people to listen, help their clients get more clients, and so on and so forth. And then basically radio kind of started changing, and where I was in a small town radio station. So what happens is it becomes more and more automated. It's ran by computers. So most of the time when you hear people on the radio, they're at one place in the world on a bunch of radio stations all over the world. So I was like, well, okay, the competition is too high. And I also handled the commercial material that was getting low. So I entered teaching. I went back to school and got my teacher's degree, and it's a master's in curriculum and instruction. And it has an emphasis
fascinating.
in reading.
Yeah, fascinating. About the history of radio in the US. Is it true that what is the letters or the name of a radio station varies whether you're east or west of the Mississippi? Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. So on the eastern side, it starts with a W. On the western side, it starts with a K.
Gotcha. Yeah. So now I remember reading that. Oh, why is that? Is this from old federal days in the US?
Lord only knows why we do anything half the time. I mean, we're still not sure why we do daylight savings time. Still, there's not really a need for it. I remember the history on why that was there. I think it's mostly just because you only have 4 letters in a call station in your call letters. And the government requires you to say your call letters at the top of every hour. So, you're limited on how many variations you can do. So I'm supposing that they're saying, okay, so we can just identify these radio stations easily, WK. And then we kind of have an idea of where they're located.
Gotcha. So you mentioned there talk radio, Rush Limbaugh, and then there's of course Weird Al Yankovic.
He was more music radio. Back in the day, he did all the music and stuff in the 80s. Back when I was going to school as a kid. I did country music stations. That's where I was at country music stations, and I ran an all talk station that's back when Rush Limbaugh first started.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's morphed into and tell me about radio now. You said of course it's become automated, but
it's run by computers mostly.
It's still robust though. The business model still makes money.
It's still there and it makes money. It's more on a local level, really, where people want to hear their local news and they need and the weather. Because the radio stations do kick in and let you know, oh, there's a tornado coming, everybody take cover, that kind of thing. And also just the local news, like where I was with this small town radio, nobody covered them, even with TV. So the radio station became their only source of local information. So it is that way, but also radios become more satellite driven. The bigger they are, the more the satellite and that sort of thing. It just changes over time. They're also going more over to the websites, and they're just it's just technology taking over and changing the beast in a way, but it's still the same thing.
Okay. And of course, with some of the freak weather we've been having all over the world in the past few weeks is with the tornadoes in the US, it's more needed than ever.
Yeah, well, where I am, it didn't hit us. It went right above where I am. It went into Kentucky, which is above North Carolina. So that was my friend is in Virginia, and she luckily didn't get hit. But those things can travel right down a road and miss you.
Yeah, I don't want to experience it.
They're not fun in any way.
The movie Twister was fun though. I liked it when he went.
That's the only time they're fun is when they're in a movie. That's it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So you moved from radio and you went into education. Tell me about your venture into education.
I went back to get a certification in English, secondary English, grades 7 through 12. And as I was going through the whole process, I realized all I needed was like a couple more classes and I'd have a master's. The master's is basically it's one step away from a specialist degree. I would have had to work in the school system for a certain amount of years, and then I would have been a specialist, a reading specialist. And they don't accept online teaching as part of the requirement. You have to work inside the school system. And I didn't work in the school system, but a very short amount of time. I have an autoimmune disease, and working in the school system, I was constantly sick. And I am very prone to lung infections and things like that due to the medications I take. So I had to find another way. And that's when I found VIP Kid back in like 2017.
Okay, so you were prone to lung infections. Wow, COVID was really good news for you then.
Well, I'd already been practicing staying away from people for quite a while because of my disease. So I was like, hey, I'm ready for the marathon. So I've been practicing for that for quite a long time.
Wow. So that's the situation. So you've been more or less working from home and like
since
self-isolating?
2017.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But I have a son too. I mean, I haven't been completely isolated, but I've been working from home since 2017 as an online teacher.
Okay. And so you went from the classroom to VIP Kid. Now this is interesting because some listeners may be aware of VIP Kid, and so tell me about working for VIP Kid and what's happening at the moment, as we know with the.
Well, in the beginning, it still was like sit around and wait for bookings in the very beginning, but I got bookings after about 90 days. I started getting bookings with them. And in those days, they were doing raises and they were, they were giving you a lot of money. And then they suddenly weren't able to. Backers stopped backing them. And then the regulations come along and it's like just pulled the rug out from all of them. It seems like. I also worked for Q Kids. Q Kids seems to be holding its own. VIP Kid and Q Kids both are going to have a global version. They're going global. They're going to try. We'll see how that goes. And they are currently trying to book students globally. I pulled out of VIP Kid and Q Kids well before the regulations even took place. I have comments on some of my videos that I did like last year talking about marketing and being an independent online teacher and how you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket and depend on just these companies to support you because they have too much control. They have too much control over your students. That's your resource for income. Too much control over your income, too much control. And one person commented, how did you know we would need to know all of this a year later? I said, no, it's just good business sense to not rely on one source. So I started looking into independent teaching, not just for myself, but for those that couldn't work for those companies, just couldn't. You live in you don't live in the US or Canada and suddenly you can't work for us, or you're a non-native speaker and suddenly you can't work for us, which is just BS. And I decided, well, how do you become an online, independent teacher? How do you find students? I started just doing the research and trying to figure that sort of thing out. And I suddenly realized, oh, this is exactly what a radio station does to find listeners. It's how you present yourself and you draw somebody in to your services. You don't get out there. A radio station is never on. No business is on the corner saying we have a degree in, or we are certified in, or we do that. They are actually sitting there giving you this picture that you want to achieve. They give you the dream. And they say you can achieve it with me. And that's basically how you get students, is by providing your potential students the answer to their question. I mean, that's a simplified version. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot of thought that has to go into it. And then there's the systems of operations and everything that you need for a business in order for it to run properly. Starting out organically as an independent online teacher really does help you learn how to build a business because it's slow enough for you to handle it. What I saw after COVID hit was a lot of these little tiny businesses jumped onto the scene and they contacted me, and I did promote some of them because I was like, oh, wow, this is a cool little platform. And what happened is they just kind of fell apart because they weren't ready for the need that was coming towards them. They were bombarded by teachers, bombarded by students, and they couldn't support all of them. They weren't prepared. As an independent online teacher, when you go organic, you might get one student, two students, and you have time to figure out how to do your payment, how to do your invoicing, how to do feedback, how to track your students, how to do, the list goes on and on and on about how to organize your business so that it runs in a very efficient manner so that you're not sitting there all day long playing catch up to support your students and just teach them in a classroom. And then it goes well beyond that, where, it's not just about, okay, I have a service. You're going to take this service and you're going to turn it into an offer. We have so many online teachers that are wanting to do this independent thing now because of what happened with China, that now everybody's offering classes. Well, now you have to become that person who creates an offer around your service. Tell them, okay, I'm going to give you this, but I'm going to give you this and this and this and this and this too. And this is why it costs this much. You never want to be the service that has to keep being lowering their price because competition's out there beating you at a lower price. You want to be the service that has a higher price, but you give a ton of offer and value to it. There's something unique about it besides, hey, I just have sessions online.
That's very good. There's a lot to dig into there, Leah.
I can go. I don't want to fire hose anybody. But I do have an understanding of, just because of VIP Kid, I had to learn how to prep for a class. They gave us the curriculum, but just getting ready for the class and getting the materials, that took me a while to learn how to do. And then, just having a system for feedback for the students. My goal when I was working for VIP Kid and these other class, they give you 5 minutes in between each class. Q Kids gives you 10, but you have that moment to either breathe or run to the bathroom and come back real quick. But I was like, I don't want to be doing this all day. I'm working from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. Monday through Sunday. That's what I was doing with VIP Kid. I want to be done at 9. I don't want to be doing this all day long with all the things that you have to do before you even do the class. So I figured out a system that made it so that I was done at 9 a.m. And I learned from just creating that system alone, the other types of systems that you need to create so that you can be more efficient and not spend all day long doing a thing that you don't want to spend all day long doing, but it needs to be done.
Okay. So I want to dig into a few things there that you came up with. But before that, I just want to talk about the market in China. Of course, things are shut down officially, but, being China, I'm sure there's still some work happening under the radar.
Well, the companies are still open and running until February, apparently, is the magic date that they're going to find out exactly what's going to happen to them. But it's pretty obvious. China murdered the companies that day that they released those regulations. The stock market just but what I see is a lot of independent online teachers focusing still on that market. I know some independent online teachers who have been in that market before all of this happened, and they're still flourishing and doing well and receiving students. So what that means, I've seen rumors. I haven't seen anything that just specifically says that China says, no, you can't even be an independent teacher. I've not seen something from China. I've seen rumors stating that it's against the law, blah, blah, blah. But yet they're still doing it. And I guarantee you China knows they're doing it. So I don't know how long that ride's going to go.
Yeah, I think it's in China, it really depends on the province you're in as well. Maybe the regulations, and they always leave it open, very open to interpretation, so that they can close
mess
or
with it anytime they want.
Exactly, close or open the loophole anytime they want. So that's
why this is another situation where you don't put all your eggs in one basket. I see a lot of independent people that want to go independent, and they focus in on China, thinking China is the only place in the world that wants to learn English. And yes, it's one of the number one places that wants to do this online teaching thing, but there are a lot of countries starting to realize this is an option and are very interested in learning English. And yes, I know Vietnam has a high percentage of English speakers. They speak English there, but they want to polish their English. So there's just so much to ESL that you can do, that if you just, you have to open your mind beyond what you know about China in order to do this business.
Okay. So for somebody looking outside of China, you mentioned Vietnam. Obviously, it has I would say, a burgeoning middle class. It's up and coming. It has a big population as well. How many in Vietnam is maybe 80 million? Is that
Oh
right?
gosh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, something like that. So maybe that's a market. But you said it's more about polishing their English, whereas in China, maybe for VIP kid, they want the kid to learn Shakespeare in 2 years, don't they? The Chinese parents
Well,
sometimes are very demanding.
only 1% of the population in China actually speaks English. So that was, I don't know how long ago that, was taken, that survey or whatever was taken, but that's that statistic. But that's what I saw recently online, is like 1% of China speaks English. Well, what level of English is that? That's what you ask yourself. I mean, in Vietnam, it says that, a very large population speaks English. Well, what level is that? It doesn't tell you what level it is. Sure, okay, 80% of Vietnam, I don't know if that's right, but let's say 80% of Vietnam speaks English. Well, is it beginner English? Is it intermediate English? What level? But what I'm finding is that there is actually a huge need for these people who are, they can speak English. They seem to speak it pretty well, but they want to take tests that require them to have a higher level so that they can do this job that they really need in another country. Those are the kind of things that are happening, that it has a huge need as well. It's not just the kids that need to learn English. There's just so many different aspects and of what ESL provides to these people.
Yeah, so it can be a bit overwhelming for somebody going into this market, starting out on their own, just to position themselves, isn't it?
Yeah,
there's the different level of students, everything from, somebody who just wants to travel English when travel used to be a thing. And then, of course, exams and promotions and kids. And then each culture is different. So can you give any advice for somebody starting out there? Is it
actually talked to a client today about that.
Yeah, is it just very
so the deal is that I know that you have that the trend right now is to talk about niche. And I have a client who's really rocking it right now. He's doing quite well. He took my Facebook ads course, the Online Teacher's Facebook Ads Blueprint, and he's been in it for 6 months. He came to me. He had been an independent online teacher organically for almost a year, about 7 or 8 months. And this other person who's new to we call it Taught the Online Teacher's Facebook Ads Blueprint, she's new. And she was saying, should I go broad? Should I just say I do ESL? Should I teach IELTS? Should I narrow it down to medical professional? Should I, so we talk about narrowing down the niche all the time. And after working with my other client, we came to a conclusion that maybe we should change the way we look at that. And so she is in the healthcare business. And we said, here, start with your niche, or what your service is, as broad. You want to teach ESL, but mention that you are a healthcare professional who teaches English. Then you just need that one student, because this is exactly how my really successful client has done. Once you start getting students, the niche starts evolving into itself. You start saying, I don't like that kind of student, or, ooh, I can't teach that age, or wait a minute, I find this type of student really interesting, and what they do really interests me. You start developing a feel for who you want to teach. And I did the same thing when I decided my independent online teacher, if you want to gig, is marketing, because that's what I know and I love and I have a passion for. And I thought I had defined my person as an online teacher who wants to build a business. Well, it's so much more than that. As I get more and more clients, I start to realize their mindset and what they're looking for and what they want to understand. So really, it takes that first student, and then you start getting more students, and just let that niche evolve. And quite honestly, with Facebook ads, if you understand the basic audience that you want to target, I want to target ages X to X in this country, in this country, in this country, you can start running ads and get the data back from the Facebook ads as to what's working and what's not. But the key is how you speak in the content. That's the key. So ESL has all of these little things that we just got done mentioning about IELTS and, the accent reduction coaches and things like that, polishing up your English, all of that kind of thing, and beginner English. So you have to create content that speaks to the area of ESL that you want to teach. So when you're speaking about that particular piece of information that you're trying to share, like my client that's doing super well, he has general ESL and he has IELTS. Well, IELTS is like, it's a seasonal thing because they have to take the test at certain times of the year. But then he has the general ESL, so he starts promoting it as beginner English to help them raise up through the levels to get to the point where they can take the IELTS. So here he's got an offer. Now he's got, the process. So he's created a funnel that brings these people to the ultimate goal of becoming fluent. So you start out a little bit broad, and I know this is going to go against so many people, and they're saying, no, please, no, don't say this. But if you have an idea in your mind of who it is you want to teach, and sometimes that person is you, if you can think about your ideal, who do you like? Who do you want to teach? Who's the person you would like to teach? What do they like to do? What do they enjoy doing? And speak to that person in your content. Your niche will start to evolve and define itself on its own.
Very similar to what James Liu said a few weeks ago. He said, we talked about choosing the niche. So it's very much what you're saying, choose the niche, but then it evolves, doesn't it?
It does. It evolves.
You begin to see who you like teaching.
And you can get too narrow with that niche too. Sometimes you got to you can come out a little bit like Sunny Lenarduzzi used a perfect example of this, where she's a YouTube specialist. And so she had this lady come to her.
Sorry, Leah, what's her name?
Sunny Lenarduzzi.
Sunny Lenarduzzi. We'll put a link in the show notes anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yep.
She's a YouTube guru, and so she used this example, and she had this lady come to her, and she was doing, how to shop on a budget at the grocery store. But that's a great niche. Everybody wants to know how to save money, how to feed a family of 4 under X amount of dollars, But it was all about Aldi, which is a grocery store chain here in America that's it's cheaper than Walmart. It's cheaper than a lot of places. It's very cheap, but it has really good food. So she was just focusing on that one grocery store chain. And that's where Sunny said, maybe you need to widen it a little bit and not be so Aldi.
Go to Lidl as well. You have Lidl in the US?
Hadn't heard of that one.
Oh,
we
no,
might,
there's
we don't have
German.
it in the South. I'll say that. We don't have that in the South.
In Europe, it's Lidl and Aldi, the German, what was it, cut price giants. So, sorry, so she was concentrating on Aldi, so go to Walmart.
So that's too narrow. So now you just kind of open it up a little bit of, maybe add Walmart, maybe add another store where you can go and do a price check, or just add some other ways to, do this. So that's where, the client that I was talking to today, I felt like her niche was a little too narrow. So we said, instead of saying, I help healthcare professionals learn ESL, say, I am a healthcare professional who helps people learn ESL. That way, you're kind of pulling the people that you want, but you're also opening the doors for somebody else too.
Yeah. Okay.
A little bit, so that you can at least get those couple of students to help you define who you want to teach and what you want to teach a little bit clearer in your mind.
Gotcha. So maybe before it was doctors and nurses, but now it could be medical salespeople, receptionists.
Yeah, that's what she was finding, is she was getting bombarded with different kinds of, people, and she wasn't sure. I said, why don't you just flip it a little bit? And then that way, maybe you'll get somebody who's maybe not a healthcare professional at all that just wants to take a class from you. And you may find out that person is your ideal student, because the client that I have now that's doing so awesome, that's gone 6 months through, he ran conversion ads on Monday and got, I think the count was at 40 students in 12 hours. And now he's up to 100. and he started on Monday, this past Monday. So we're on a week, and he's up to 100. And so he had this definition of who his students were, and he started learning about what other countries he could grab from just through the Facebook ads themselves. And he said it was easier when it was organic because it just takes that one student. And then I started understanding who it was that I wanted to teach. So we sat down with her and we explained his journey. And it's a little bit easier when you talk to another teacher and get an idea of their journey versus a coach who's telling you need to narrow down your niche.
Okay, so everybody, I'm speaking to Leah Sparrow from Teacher Leah, Leah.com. So that's a good point to go to Leah's website and check out more what she does. So I just want to go back a little bit to what you said earlier about the normal way maybe that teachers promote themselves, which is by degrees and accreditations. I have X degree and accreditation, but you said to live the dream, to present the future, the ideal future of the client. Is that right?
Well, I think it's fine that you have your credentials because your students, of course, are going to want to know that. And you can always have an about section or have it in your profile on your Facebook page or your LinkedIn, have it there for them to refer to. But when you're doing content, when you're doing posts, you could throw that out there. You could also use it as a story. You could also share with them, how I became a teacher and why I love teaching and share it in bits and pieces. Constantly share your story with your client so that they can make a connection and find out who you are. But don't just, all of a sudden just look at all my degrees, and post it on a Facebook post. Why? Because you have thousands of teachers you're competing with. And if all of us are throwing, hey, look at my degrees and I teach English, nobody's going to stop. When you scroll through, social media, you see the same thing over and over again. A lot of times, same kind of post, same kind of, copy, same kind of voice that's there in that post. I call it, you have to stop the scroll. You need to do a scroll stopping post that makes them go, oh, well, this is different. I'm going to look at this. And sometimes it's a picture of a giraffe and the copy has nothing to do with the giraffe, but you made them stop. That's the point. You want them to stop for a second and just listen to you or read about you and look at you for just a second and get their attention. And the way that you do that is in those first 2 lines of copy too. Don't talk about you at the first 2 top lines of copy because you have that see more button in your copy. So you've got just a few lines to get their attention. It's not going to be, hi, I'm a teacher. It's going to be, do you have trouble with people understanding you when you speak English? Oh, well, yes, I do. Or something that grabs their attention, that speaks to them about the thing that they're thinking about today or have been thinking about that they need an answer to. So when you can speak to them and then you can start talking about, well, I help, do this and that with these people. And then you give a few tips and then you go into how the services that you offer and how to contact you. But start off with what they want to hear.
Okay, and that's very good advice. I was speaking to somebody last week about selling. So, I used to be a professional salesperson. So first you sell the meeting, don't you? If you want to meet the client, you don't sell the product. You say, oh, you ring this when we used to use phones. You say, hello, are you available next week? I'd like to talk to you. And then you get the meeting. So the idea with the copy is not to sell your product, is to get them to read more, isn't it? It's the hook.
Exactly. So you want to make a connection. It's always about the connection. I think Paul Salloway of Babel Tech, he said, and I may get this wrong and he'll correct me, I'm sure.
Oh, by the way, if you want to listen back to Paul's podcast we did a few months ago, please do. Some great advice on landing pages. Yeah. Sorry,
and we collaborate quite a bit with Babel Tech. I mean, he's a part of TotFab. He's been absolutely amazing at supporting my clients. But anyway, what he says is, he said marketing is like the flirtation and the sale is the date. So, you gotta, when we go out and flirt, we don't just run up and go, "Hi, I'm Leah and I went to school and I have a master's." We don't do that. We walk up and we say, "Hi, what's your name? It's nice to meet you. What do you do?" So you have to kind of think about that flirtation of, "Hi, how can I help you today?" And think of the question they would ask you and start there in the conversation. They are already speaking to you. They have a question for you. What's that question? Start there and answer it. And then if you want to know more, join me at this Zoom meeting or whatever. I'm having a master class on December, blah, 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 blah. Come join me and we'll talk more about how we can get you from point A to point B.
Okay. So the classic ad, as somebody who came up in commercial radio, is do you make these mistakes in English? You probably know that headline, isn't it? And people say the most important word there is these, isn't it? Because everybody wants to know what are the mistakes? Am I making them? Am I like somebody?
And you see those a lot in social media too. Yeah, you see it. Do you say these words incorrectly? You might be saying these words incorrectly, and they're even speaking to English speakers. I mean, the native speaker too. You're probably using these words incorrectly. The most common words that are used in, like you, your, and your. I mean, your and your, there, and there. All of those kind of things grab people's attention because it's we all know it's a problem, but they want to know how you're going to address it. What's your take on that? Don't copy somebody else, because then it's another ad about there, and there. Whatever, or another post about there, and there. So do something a little bit more creative with it and make them stop and think about it. So,
okay. Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about content in a moment, but I wanted to, so we've talked about not necessarily putting your credentials front and center at the beginning, but maybe as a clincher rather than a hook. Yeah, so maybe at the end you can, when you run through marketing copy and it's about dealing with the problem, the emotion, and then, building the credibility.
You gotta build. Well, what you gotta do is you have to build the need with the client. The client wants it, but now you got to build it to where they need you to fix it. So you got to build the need. You got to make it like they want to come to you. You don't want to chase them down. You're not the one going to the job application. You're not applying for a job. That's when you're doing your credentials and you're saying, I have this and I have that. I get it a lot when I have clients that come to me and they give me their resume, and I'm like, I don't want to know your resume. I want to know what you have a problem with. And I want to know why this problem, you're struggling with it. Why are you stuck? Where are you stuck? And I want to help you get unstuck. That's how I want to help you. So when you're doing your content, don't do a resume, do a, hey, you know what? You're stuck here. Here's how you can get unstuck from here when you're doing a post.
And think of the flirtation all along. Nobody likes somebody too eager or a stalker or So if you come across as too desperate, it's definitely a turn.
Well, that's the other thing is when you finally get them into the DMs, say they direct message you, say that's what you're asking for. They email you and they want to get on with you and they want to talk to you about price, or they want to talk to you about your services. The one thing that I see a lot of teachers doing about price is that, immediately, of course, and Americans aren't used to it because we don't haggle a lot, but other countries do haggle on price. And you'll get the immediate, well, can't you do it for this much?
It's definitely a Chinese thing. Yeah.
Would notice. And it's, no, I can't. So you don't want to be, like I said earlier, you don't want to be the service that's lowering your price, because that's a bad place to be. You need to explain to them, well, here's what comes with that price. And a lot of times I've heard teachers say, well, they come back with, yes, I understand. You need to do feedback and you need to get the curriculum done and blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? I also need to pay for Zoom so that you can have an online classroom. And I spend, I do spend a lot of money creating my business. That you need to create the value. You need to also, if you want to counteract the companies, because the companies are your biggest competitor. And that's going to be something that some of these students, well, this, VIP kid charges me blah, blah, blah. Why can't you charge this much? Here's why I can't charge this much. Number one, VIP kid is a factory. Every teacher is taught to teach the same way. No teacher is allowed to stop down and say, okay, look, I see you're really struggling with this particular thing. Let's stop and hone in on that so that you can have a good foundation that will help you move forward. Instead, VIP Kid shoves them through 25 minutes, regardless of where they are. And you have a lot of students that end up there in intermediate and advanced, and they're lost. What's the difference between you and them? You can actually fill the holes. You can actually fill the gaps. You can actually stop and take a little bit more extra time and help them with that part of their journey. That's the difference. And that's the specialty, the customization that you're offering them. And that's worth the price.
Okay, let's go on to that in 1 second. But I just want to talk about a story. Somebody contacted me on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, and self-styled international businessman who said he was willing to pay me 50 kwai, like $5 an hour for teaching. Yeah, so I was like, no. Well, no, I'm not going to do it for $5. But if you're an international businessman, and you're offering somebody $5, I don't know. There's a few red flags there, isn't there? But
that's a red flag. That is a red flag.
Yeah,
that is
absolutely. Yeah. But let's talk about building the value and presenting the offer to the client. So as you know from infomercials, if you ever stay up late in the 90s, like I did.
Oh, is it they are the direct marketing moment?
Yeah, and the knives. And I actually, there was a Facebook thread a few weeks ago about the ever sharp knives. I'm sure a lot of people have seen this
as seen on TV.
On TV, this space age technology from Europe, and
there's always somebody about to cut their arm off with these with another knife, and they can't possibly learn how to cut vegetables unless they have these knives.
Absolutely, yeah, and the expert is always from a different country, because you look at the US one, he's British, and if you go to Europe, he's American, and if that's how it works.
Somehow that makes it even more exotic.
Yeah, it's somebody. And what was it? Yes. So, and there was the pens as well. I remember those ones that you could puncture a tin can, but I think you can do that.
Why we would want to do that, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like you're out doing that. But these knives, actually, I bought them, or my father bought them about 10, 15 years ago. And the thread was that these knives are actually still sharp. So they are actually great knives, and
they are actually, yeah. But the commercial is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's over the top. But my point, I think, was it actually does teach us a little bit about how to present an offer, doesn't it? So, okay, you're buying one knife, or let's say they're not selling you a set of knives. First, they sell you the one knife, don't they? And they say, plus you get a second knife for your tackle box, or
that's the upsell.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get the pairing knife, and you get the office knife, vegetable knife, plus, and then they get, and
eventually you got the whole set by the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah. But the whole thing is the set, but they sell it individually.
Right. But they keep telling you, plus you get this for just this much more, and plus you get this and it makes it sound less expensive.
Exactly.
As they're pulling you through the funnel. Yeah.
And then they do the discounting. Was X amount, now is reduced by 50% if if you respond to this free phone number.
Yeah, that's the giving them the time limit. It makes it more urgent to do that. And yes, it sounds sleazy to some people, but that's how it's done. And you don't have to be sleazy while you're doing it. When you're offering your value to someone, you can tell them, hey, take this assessment. This is the most common way that, you're a teacher, so you're going to do this. Take this assessment before you meet with me, and then I will get with you and I will have a program created that will help you get from here to here. Okay. And a 6 to 8 week program could help them go from an A1 to an A2, maybe even an A3. Just to, you can't guarantee that they're going to get to another level because you've got them as the variable, but you can tell them they will improve their English in 6 to 8 weeks. with these one-on-one sessions that I'm offering today, 6 one-on-one sessions for 1 hour for X amount. If you join me today, I will throw in an extra session covering grammar. You were going to do that anyway, right? But hey, we'll cover some grammar too, because they need the grammar, or they need the pronunciation, or they need the reading support. I'll also throw in an extra package for reading for you at X amount, half the price that I normally would on its own. So it's not being sleazy. It's saying, I'm creating this package for you, and you can pick and choose what you want. Another way to do it is to offer group lessons. And, you get them into the group, and you can say, all right, I've got a group lesson for you. You can't afford my $50 an hour. How about you join the group for $30? And you're making more with a group. A group can actually be more efficient for you because you're spending less time with clients one-on-one, and you're doing more of a group, and you're getting more feedback from those clients so that you can really hone your services and your products. You can start to create even digital products for those self-learners that want to take something. So it starts to build upon itself, where you start having different offers and different opportunities for your students. I have a client who's doing a challenge. It's a free challenge. They can come into the challenge. They can do different things each day to prepare for a certain event. At the end of the challenge, he's going to meet with them, and he's going to tell them exactly what they need to do from there. And then they're going to sign up for a package. Some of them may be able to sign up for the high-end package and go ahead and do this test they need to do. Others are going to have to take more packages. But what he's telling them, in the end, they're going to be spending less, because this test, many people go into it not being prepared, and they spend $300. Then they take the test again, and they spend another $300. Whereas with his services, you're going to be saving money, because you're going to be prepared, and you're going to be able to pass this test and get the score you need. So you see how he's not changing his price. He's telling them the value, and he's giving them the journey. He's describing to them exactly what they need to hear and exactly why it costs this much.
Okay, fantastic information. So please listen to this over and over, and please do get in contact with Leah as well. It's teacherleah.com. And Leah, you're also on Twitter, LinkedIn.
I'm everywhere. Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Clubhouse.
Really? What? And TikTok?
I have not. I just cannot bring myself to do TikTok.
I want to see you on TikTok. I'll definitely follow you. I have 5 followers now, so I'm big on TikTok.
Look at you.
Yeah. They're probably fake accounts.
I have a friend. He's a guy he's a good friend of mine. We worked in radio together. He's an actor now, and he's on TikTok, and he has thousands upon thousands of people. But he's my mentor. He's the one that taught me about marketing and the things that, how to do these things. But yeah, he does TikTok, and I'm like, I'm not to that point of insanity yet.
Okay, well, we'll do another podcast when you are, and we'll look forward to it.
I'll let you know when I've lost my mind.
So, Leah, I wanted to move on. There's so much good information that you've kindly given to the listeners
I do
today.
tend to give a lot of information, but you can contact me also at Leah@teacherleah.com.
Leah@teacherleah.com, definitely.
Leah@teacherleah.com is my email.
Yeah. And please do, and get in contact with Leah. So I want to talk about content. We covered that a little bit. So what do you mean in terms of content?
More about content.
I mean in regards videos, blog posts.
Okay.
What kind of content should people be looking at, putting out there? How often should they do it?
So you got to look at your business. So that's what you got to look at, is what does your business need? What are you capable of doing right now? Because you can add too much on your plate. So hone each thing, and get it down to where you're doing it efficiently. You're doing it, you're doing it in a way that doesn't take up all your time. So right now, with posting, you could post daily. It could take you 15 minutes to throw a post on. Will it at first? No, because you've got to figure out what to say and how to say it. So what I do, I will just hit on posting, basic posting. Blog posts, by the way, are excellent, but that's where you can also get into repurposing your content. And blog posts are excellent for helping a website to grow. But if you're just starting on social media, which is a great place to start, because a website is a whole bigger thing. So if you want to start small, social media, okay? I use the 70-20-10 strategy. 70% of your posts are about you and about your services and some tips. Maybe you're giving a few tips about how to use this particular word or what this word means, and a little bit about you and what you do and the things you like to do. And, maybe even a video of you enjoying a meal and connect it into culture, because a lot of language learners want to learn culture. Then you can go into your images and things like that. It's all about you and your brand. That's 70%. So if you're doing 7 days a week, that's about 3 to 4 posts a week. Okay. Then you have the 20%. 20% is somebody else's content. So for example, I shared your content on my LinkedIn account not too long ago with the ebooks that you have for EFL. So that was an excellent thing for me to share with my clients, because they need resources like that on how to grow their content. So you can do 2 posts a week, somebody else's content. That helps. That's like super easy. That's like quick and fast and you're done. Then the 10% is the sale. That's like 1 post a week, or maybe even you're still doing your 70% and just down at the bottom, click here to learn more. And that can be one little post out of it, or it can, you don't want to do it at every single post. So you can also use your posts to build your email list, or you got to think about where are you sending them with this post? What do you want them to do with the post? Do you just want them to engage with the post? Ask a question, ask them a question, ask them how they feel about something, run a poll, have them engage with your posts. That helps you get pushed out more by the algorithm, by the way, is when you get more engagement. The algorithm on any social media platform craves people to stay on it. So the more you engage, the more the algorithm sees, oh, people are staying here because they like to play with her. So we're going to keep pushing her stuff out. So, so you got to think about, where are you going to take them with your post? Do you want them to engage? Do you want them to go to your YouTube channel video? Do you want them to go to your podcast? Do you want them to sign up with you? There's many different ways you can send them on this journey, and maybe you send them to your podcast, and inside the podcast, you start building your relationship with them there, and then you send them to a challenge, or you send them to a session, or you send them to your email inbox to ask a question, to sign up for a session, or maybe you have a free assessment they can take. So you're taking them on a journey, and you have to think about that journey and keep it simple and tell them exactly what you want them to do. I mean, it's like you're telling a 2-year-old what you want them to do, but you want to make sure they understand exactly what you want. Click here. When you go to the page, you're going to fill out a form. And when they get to that page, you're going to tell them on the page what you want them to do. You have to give them all the directions of where you want them to go. And think about that journey and keep it simple.
Okay. We're talking to Leah Sparrow from teacherleah.com, and Leah's email address is leah@teacherleah.com. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. And as we said, Leah is on all the good and all the bad social media platforms. And
really?
So thank you very much, Leah, for coming on today. As we said before the podcast, I was a little bit afraid that I'd have, duplicate content here. Maybe you'd cross the path that.
Well, you're going to have a little bit of crossing, a little bit. But I do have a certain way of looking at things that's different from somebody else. James Liu is an amazing man. He knows his stuff. I do concentrate on the content. James Liu has a different take on how he does things. I have a take on mine. You just pick a coach and go with it, and stay with that mentor. Don't bounce around too much, because you can overwhelm yourself with the shiny object syndrome and going, oh, this coach has this coach has that. Pick a coach, stay with them for a while, and grow with them.
Okay. And please do listen to James's podcast, mm-hmm. and also Herbert Gerzer and Paul Salloway as well.
Yeah. Paul is more about Babel Tech. He's an all-in-one service that will give you the website, the scheduler, the payment, and the email list builder. So he's got it all right there in one place, and he holds free master classes. And by the way, yes, I am an affiliate, but I truly believe in his services. I think that they're absolutely wonderful. He holds master classes for his clients that other services that are similar to his would charge you for. He holds them for free for his clientele. He gives you so much support. It's insane. So he's at a reasonable price too. So there's a little plug for Paul.
Definitely a very reasonable price, as we discussed on the podcast with Paul back then. So that's Paul, Sallaway.
Correct.
And Herbert Gerzer, Gerzer, or Zer if you're American. And James Liu, James obviously, and then Liu. So, and of course, we're talking today to Leah Sparrow. So, Leah, thanks very much again. And if people want to get in contact with you, please do drop an email to Leah, Leah, at teacherleah.com. Mm-hmm. And Leah Sparrow, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the EFL Magazine Business Podcast with Philip Pound. For more great advice and resources, check out eflmagazine.com. If you found this podcast helpful, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. See you next time.